I would do the question and answer format probably 3 or 4 times a year, because what I learned is that there's a lot of questions that walk in the door on Sunday morning that I didn't plan to address in my lessons, my sermons, you know. And so in order to become available to what needs to be spoken to in the moment, I love doing the Q&A session, especially anonymously, because it allows us to address what's present in the room that needs to be spoken to. And so while I offer you answers or responses to the questions that you may have posed, I don't say to you that my answer is the right one or the only one. It is an answer. And as I respond to you, reading these questions and responding to them, I invite you to just open your heart and see where it lives within you, because there's only one of us here. Can I get a witness to that? And so at some point, we all draw our wisdom and our challenges from the same pool of collective mind. And so what one person may have written as a question here very well could possibly speak to everybody else in the room. Yeah? Okay. And if you really think about the fact that we are unified as one spirit, one mind, and many physical bodies, everything that concerns one person has to affect other people as well. So let's just dig into some of these questions and we'll see what we come up with. In prac studies, it was mentioned in our readings that we should not pray that those born with birth defects experience healings because they probably choose to have this experience. This seems to limit, the bottom line of this question is, the question that I ran into in almost every Science 101 class are, things like why are some babies born with physical challenges or mental challenges? Why do some of the things that happen on this planet happen that seem so unfair, so unright, so ungodly? Right? Anybody ever had that question show up for you? Well, there's 2 answers for that. The first answer is, I think what this person was inferring is that from a spiritual perspective, it's easier than all get out to explain away the challenges of the human condition. Well, it's all karma. You brought it with you and all that. You know what? That may be very, very true. I will not argue with that we incarnate in the body that we choose and the physical experience we choose, the culture we incarnate in, the families that we incarnate in, because our soul requires that experience in order for it to be made whole. Now, whether that's true or not, my sense, relatively speaking, is it resonates with me that we always attract to us experiences that our soul is seeking. So, as my friend Gary Zukoff says, we heal the splintered soul, that parts of ourselves that are still separated when we show up in this incarnation. We know that life is an eternal process, and that this body that we live in is what? And I've said this before. It's nothing more than a carbon-based, biodegradable, disposable vessel that we ride around in, acquiring the human experience so that when we leave this experience, we take the embodiment of that experience with us to what's next. So that's one answer. The other answer, which I find great relief in for me, is I don't know. I don't know. No living person knows. And so the result of that question and that answer, I don't know, and I'm not being smug or trite when I say that. I mean, that's part of the big surrender to life is I don't know. There's a lot I don't understand. I don't know. In other words, there's a lot that goes on in the world, in my environment, the people around me, my family, the world at large, that I have no control over. I have no control over at all. I cannot change what is outside of the realm of my own sphere of influence. But what I can do is choose to perceive what is differently. You with me when I say that? We can choose to reframe how we are seeing the conditions in the world, the conditions that we see people are born into, rather than sitting in judgment or pity, just observing that and realizing it's not necessarily what's going on out there that matters, it's how we perceive it. Now, my question to you would be this: how can we perceive anybody on this planet who is challenged in any way, shape, or form? Whether it's a physical issue or a mental issue or the culture they're born in, how can we perceive them in a way that is healing? That's a question. This is Q&A now. I'm asking you. Love. I don't know. So there. With non-judgment, right? Without rushing to judgment. We form opinions about things and people, then we rush to build a case to support that opinion. And to live in the I don't know is just live in the awe and the wonder of what is and realize that life is a mystery. It is a mystery. Nobody knows. And when we try to push ourselves to the edge of knowing the unknowable, it makes us suffer. But to embrace the all unknown and say, this is it. Show me the way today, God. How many of us lay awake thinking about what's going to happen tomorrow or the day after? Get over it. You have no control over it. No control whatsoever. It's what we do with what we have in this moment that determines tomorrow and our perception of it. So I think I wandered off the path of that one just a little bit. In an infinite universe, how is it possible that the universe is always expanding, never contracting? That's a good one. Expansion implies going past a limit. How is it possible in a limitless universe? Also, all life is patterned on expansion and contraction. Why no respect given to the principle of contraction in the Abundance Book? In the relative world, everything expands and contracts. Everything is energy, yeah? Energy at different vibrations creates form. Show me one physical thing that you can point to that one day will not be here or will be here. Everything that is in the human realm, the physical realm on this planet, will not be here. This planet won't be here one day. That's part of the contraction. But the universe itself is continually expanding. Now they're saying beyond the speed of light, which is 287,000 miles a second or something like that, give or take a few seconds. But consider that. In a universe that is expanding at the speed of light or beyond, we are microcosms of that expansion. That means that we have to participate, whether we like it or not, in the principle of expansion. And we're always expanding our experience of something in our lives. What determines what our experience is going to be of a growing and expanding idea? It's consciousness. So in the human condition, in the physical realm, is there such thing as expansion and contraction? Sure. Look at your lungs. They expand. They contract. They constrict. Why? Because that's what's required for you to be able to live. Expansion and contraction in the human condition is natural, but the universe itself doesn't even know where it's going. It's going at the speed of light. Now consider that, regarding the Abundance Book, consider the fact that if the universe is all there is, meaning God is all there is, yeah, and you're part of that, what part of you is not in the principle of expansion? Say, well, my thinking, maybe. Sometimes our consciousness is closed. And if we're living in a belief system of constriction or not enough in an expanding universe, and the universe responds according to our deepest beliefs, consciousness, what are we going to create more of in an expanding universe if we're stuck in a belief in lack or not enough? That's a question. We're going to create more, not enough. It has no alternative but to do that. And that's the whole principle of the book, is to look at the first three chapters of the book explain the concept. First, understand you are one with the universe, your source, your supply. Number two, the universe is expanding at the speed of light. That means the principle of more than enough is pushing out. And the third chapter, or the second law, the rule is be accountable for your consciousness. How many of us are continuing to blame something outside of ourselves for our conditions in our personal lives? 2 of us, okay. We live in an expanding universe, and contraction happens in the human condition. It's easy to see. The trees out here one day will not be here. They will return back to the elements from which they came to do what? Only to sprout up again. Yeah? Okay. How are you breathing, by the way? I always ask that. And I've said this before when I was here, our breath is the first thing we do when we come to this planet. We breathe in. And the last thing we do before we leave the planet, we'll breathe out. And it's the countless breaths between those 2 breaths that we go unconscious and forget how important breathing is. Because our breathing is what anchors us in the present moment, which is where your point of power is. You have no power tomorrow. Can I get a witness for that? The only place you have any power is in this moment, because that is where your creative process is happening by means of your belief system. As within, so without, as above, so below. As a man thinketh, so it goes on and on and on. Say this and see how deep it goes with you. I am always becoming cause to my own effect. My consciousness goes before me to announce my coming. You get it? Okay. These are good questions. Oopsie. Isn't there a predetermined set point on gratitude, genes, biochemistry? Isn't there a predetermined set point on gratitude? I'm not sure if I totally grasp the meaning of that point, but gratitude. How many of you had science mind classes from this brilliant teacher? Okay. What's the 4th step of treatment, spiritual mind treatment? Gratitude. Why do you think it's the 4th step in treatment? Because that which we accept as already given to us, the universe affirms it is. So gratitude as the 4th step of treatment is simply, or scientific prayers, you're giving thanks in advance for what you haven't seen manifest yet. If you live in an expanding universe, it goes back to that principle. Is there any limit to the amount of good you can attract in your life by living in a grateful heart? Shake your head like this. No. But what limits that amount of good? In the Art of Abundance, I talk about the collective belief that has a chokehold on the human condition, and it's the belief in not enough. The belief in not enough. It's the cause behind every conflict, every war, a belief in not enough. And it's a human-made belief. Think about that. And when we can ascend the wall of that collective belief system and see a higher truth about ourselves and our relationship with an abundant universe, a minute ago we said, I'm always becoming cause to my own effect. If we're elevating our awareness of our oneness with life as an abundant principle, will that not draw more of whatever you deem to be necessary for you to live a life of wholeness? I'm not talking just about money, am I? The principle of abundance spills over into every area of our life. How many of us here could do to have more abundant, enriched, joyful relationships in our lives? Yeah. Or how about more abundant, vitally functioning bodies that are more abundantly accessing the joy of being in the human skin? What's stopping us from having that experience? I know that's so hard to, it sounds, because I had oh man. I'm not going to go there. I had somebody post something on my Facebook page last week that regarding one of my fellow ministers who said this particular fellow minister was a phony and a fraud, and they tried everything this minister said, and they're still in pain and hurting. And it became clear after my second or third exchange with this person that they were having emotional challenges that they would not be able to see beyond the attachment to their own anger and resentment. There's a point where we just have to stop trying to convince people of something other than what they already are fixed in their beliefs. We suffer and they suffer when we try to push our beliefs on other people. So I said thank you. After the third exchange, I said thank you for sharing. I hope you find the pathway that serves you and your needs. And that was it. Our center needs to find a new home. We don't have the finances or any viable options, it seems. How do we handle this using science and mind principles? That's really a good question. Drawing on my own experience, in 1985 I founded the Simi Valley Center for Spiritual Living. Back then it was a Church of Religious Science. And we started out in a Jewish temple. And from there we went to the Masonic Lodge. And from there we went to renting our own space in a retail center with 6,000 square feet of wonderful space available. But we didn't start out there. We grew to the edge of where each comfort zone was. You know, one of my mentors, Dr. Frank Richelieu, he pulled me aside when I was a new minister, and he says, never let them get too comfortable. Because what happens when we get too comfortable? We begin to decay, right? I've shared with you the universal principle. Ernest Holmes referred to this creative expansion, the creative urge. Everything that's living has a life force to it that's continually pushing out. That's part of the principle of expansion. And he gave us the universal imperative, which is grow or die. And living things that don't grow begin to slowly dwindle their life force and they implode. So the question is, when it comes to spiritual community, how do you come to the edge of going to what's next when you don't have the apparent viable requirements to do that? Well, number one, it's pretty simple, isn't it? Look how many chairs. I make a practice of not staring at the empty chairs in a room. But at this point, I'm going to point it out. Why aren't these chairs full? Well, they still sleeping this morning, or we can come up with all kinds of excuses. But what about if each one of us, and this is what I did, I stood before my congregation when I had a congregation of 55 people. Actually, I started out with 17 people. And I said, if the vision of our church is to make a difference on the planet, to take science and mind teaching to the world, we each have a responsibility to do that. It can't be just about me, yeah? Have you heard of the WIFM principle? WIIFM? What's in it for me? And that's what a lot of people come, and I'm not pointing to you, because you're all different than that, I know, but people walk through the doors of church, and their mindset is, what am I going to get from this today? What's in it for me? If the minister gives a good talk, I may drop a crumpled up $2, $5 bill on the plate. What's in it for me? When we step outside of that mindset and we begin to take on the vision, the fact that we're here not just for ourselves but for this planet and to add something positive to the planet before we leave it, then WIFM goes from what's in it for me to what's in it from me. What's in it from me that would help this spiritual community not just sustain itself so it's here next week when I come, but that would allow it to grow to the what's next. Well, there's several things that obviously would make that happen real quick, wouldn't it? Matter of fact, this book, How to Speak Science of Mind, I wrote this. Jim, I don't know if you were there then. I wrote this because we were beginning to, at our church, bring a friend Sunday once a month, where we'd encourage our members to bring a friend. And some of my members would say, well, that's hard because when I try to explain the principles that we teach and why I'd want them to come, I can't do it. So I wrote this book, and I gave one to every member of the church. I said, now you'll know how to explain our teaching. Because this is just a book that takes basic science of mind speak and puts it into regular language so you can understand it. It teaches the principles of the science of mind. So perhaps one way is to make a commitment that you will bring a neighbor, a friend, a stranger from the street. Doesn't matter. When you get into the what's in it from me mindset, you'll find a way to bring a growing energy to this spiritual community. Because if you don't, what's the universal imperative? Grow or die. Grow or die. And this church is a living, breathing thing. Just like any living, breathing entity, it has to continue to expand and grow, or it slowly withers up and dies. That's not just true about this church, but it's true about many churches I've seen right now. There seems to be a challenge going on with a lot of churches that they can't do church the way that we did 20, 30, 40 years ago. There's a whole new way of doing it. And I think we're in the process of redefining what that looks like. But make no mistake about it, you play a very important role in that. Whether it's bringing a friend or considering stepping up your giving, it doesn't matter at what point you do it. But if you want this church to be here in a month when you come back and knock on the door, how would you do that? How would you like that if you came and the doors were locked and nobody's there? How would that make you feel? A little empty? Well, be proactive with it. And going to a new location is exciting. What the church experts, growth experts say is when a congregation reaches 80% full, meaning of the room that you're in, you have to either go to 2 services or expand to go to a larger container, right? And you can't grow from within the field of what you already know. The only way to grow is to create a larger container and step into it. So that's what I have to say about that. Let's all take a deep breath before I read this one. How to remember not to disdain the politicians who act only to extend power and influence for themselves and their friends. They, like all people, are individuals expressions of God. That's absolutely true. But how often, myself included, do we see what's going on in our political system and we rush to anger, judgment, resentment? I make a point of not speaking about politics from a Sunday platform. I'd be delighted out in the parking lot to tell you my individual beliefs about politicians and government and all of that, but I think that at this point, this question is really good. How do you remember to not disdain them? I know this, and you may not like this answer, but every human being is doing the best they know how to do, including Republicans, including Democrats, independents, and everybody else. So I'm looking at my own heart as I read this, and I have to admit I have some work to do in this. I do. I think that some politicians, I'm going to speak only this little bit about politics, they're not the problem. What they're doing is bringing to the surface an energy that has been festering in the collective unconscious of humankind for a long time. And they've given it permission to come out, so it's being acted upon. So the question is, rather than feel disdain for those who are bringing that awareness to the surface, what can we each do as individuals to add something healing to that collective consciousness? Isn't that probably a better way to look at it? What can we do? Well, this is where spiritual practices come in, isn't it? It's called walking the talk. I love this one. Say this with me. Everywhere I look, I see the face of God. Everywhere is all-inclusive. Means everywhere. What if you could try to live in that mindset for a week? Even when you turn on the TV or read the news. Everywhere I look, I see the face of God doing the best it knows how to do via this individual expression. Could you do that? Shake your head like this. Okay? And keep in mind, you may not change that person's actions, but you'll change something within yourself that adds something in the collective unconscious that helps to neutralize that. You ever heard the term where two or more are gathered? Where two or more are gathered. What do you think that means? Of course, biblically we know that there's more power in when two or more come together in a collective consciousness of agreement. There's great power there. Yeah. Well, I see more than two here. So maybe you come together as a collective group and make some goals for this spiritual community that are bigger than you, that are universal, that are healing to the planet. And I've said this a number of times. I know I've said it here. When we leave this planet, the one question that was going to be asked when we leave this planet is the world a better place today than it was when you got here? And so we have all kinds of opportunities to do things in our lives today that say yes. Don't have to be major things, small things. Take ownership of yourself, of your life as a universal citizen, a citizen of the world, and watch how that may change some of your perceptions about what's going on. What can I add to it? What's in it from me? Okay. If after you're part of a marriage and one person discovers a deeper spiritual relationship with God and the other person is not there yet, how do you deal with the division? That may always be there for the couple. I did over my years. I did a lot of pastoral counseling with individuals who were couples that were going through that challenge. And it's not unusual in most relationships, not all, but most, that one person is far more accelerated in their passion and desire to grow deeper and spiritually. And so, how do you engage the other person in that relationship to get on board? Well, you don't. You don't, but you think by beating on him or her or preaching to them, that's going to make a difference? I'll tell you the way that you can convince other people to move into a spiritual idea. Be it. Be it. Be the example. On more than one occasion in my prior life as a musician and as a mortgage banker, those things I know are very odd to a couple, but I would, when I discovered Science of Mind in 1977, I started taking the classes, and my life began to change in immense ways. Not little ways, major ways. But I was associating with the same business people. And one night at a dinner, a few of these guys got together and they said, "You're different. What's going on with you? You're not how you used to be. You're kinder. You're more respectful. You're less brash. What's going on?" And I told them. Well, I discovered this teaching that is, changing how I see my life and how the world operates. I didn't preach. I didn't have to say one word. They asked. Be the reflection of the one and watch how it influences the people in your life. But I know this, pushing against, grinding, whining, trying to beguile others to think or believe what you do will just put up a bigger wall. Be the example. How much time do we have, Karen? I don't know. One more? Okay, one more. By the way, I didn't get to a number of these. Thank you so much for putting so many questions in there. I was really pleased to see that many questions. What I will do is I'll take the balance of these home, and I'll look through them. And if you're on my monthly email e-letters, I will address some of these in the topics in my emails. So that way I'll still be responding to them. And if you're not on my email list, next month when I'm here, I will give you some cards you can sign up for. It's free. Or you can go to my website and sign up for it free. Just my name, DennisMerrittJones.com. I often feel that I'm just one person swimming upstream against life's problems. What difference can I make? And I think we just pretty much spoke to that. What difference can I make? You're familiar with the ripple effect? Matter of fact, I wrote about it in the book, the last book, The Art of Uncertainty. You never know the effect. It's pretty easy. We look at what's going on in the world and turn on the TV, and it's overwhelming how much sadness there's and how much pain is going on out there. But do you realize that the ripple effect you can have on one human being may spread to 2 or 3, which will spread to 10 or 20 or 50 or 100. You never know that the words that you say to your neighbor as you pass them in the driveway in the morning don't necessarily, they very well may be the words that alters that person's attitude for the day. And they go into their office being a different person than they might have been because of the words you spoke to them. And all of a sudden that trickles down to all the people in that person's life during the day, and it goes on and on and on. You are the pebble in a mighty pond, if you remember that your actions make a difference. When I do radio interviews, the interview person will usually ask for one last word of wisdom from me. And I will always say this, and whether there's 10 people listening or 10,000 people listening, I will say, take a breath and remember this. You matter. Who you are and what you do matters. And the more that you get grounded in that truth, you'll realize that every day, every thought, every action creates a ripple effect that matters. And I can't think of a better way to leave this conversation right now than to leave you with the charge of remembrance that who you are is important and it matters, but what you do with who you are matters even more. Be kind. Be reverent. Be gentle. Be generous. You matter. This spiritual community matters. Cherish it. Support this beautiful teacher. Get this church more energetically involved. And the only way I can do that, Karen can't do it alone. It requires a group effort. And I support you in doing that because I love this community. By the way, next month when I'm here, it's Palm Sunday, right? We're going to do a very special Palm Sunday service called I'll Meet You in the Garden. And I think you're going to want to be there for that. And I think I'm doing the workshop afterward too. Next month I'll be doing a 2-hour workshop in the afternoon on mindfulness, which I think is at the core of really learning how to be present in the moment with what is. So thank you so much for your time. Let's sing a song, Bob.
Thank you. Just remember, as Dr. Dennis said, you can submit these questions. He will address them in his monthly newsletter. Go to his website, sign up for the newsletter. It's not a whole lot of events. What it is a robust article on how you can take this teaching into your own life. So I invite you to take advantage of that. Thank you so much.